Lesson 46 today has a title of Writing Decimals in Expanded Notation and Mentally Multiplying Decimals by 10 and 100. The first problems we have are to write numbers with decimals in expanded notation. So if we want to write 5 and 6/100ths in expanded notation, we can start that off by saying 5 times 1. That's the first part because we have 5 in the ones place, plus. Now we know this is 5 and 6/100ths, so we have 6 in the hundredths place. The way we write that is 6 times 1 over 100, or 6 times 1/100ths. And we've got our final answer. We've written 5.06 in expanded notation just by doing this process. We can move on to the next example. Let's go ahead and write 4 and 1/10 plus 5 and 1,000th as a decimal number. So if we know we have up to thousandths in decimal, we can look at our place value positions. Well, we're going to have a ones place value before the decimal point, so we keep the decimal point in line. Then we're going to have a tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. And by pre-filling out these place value positions, we can go ahead and insert the numbers exactly where they belong. So, we have 4 times 1/10. That's 4/10. So we're going to have 4/10. Goes in the tenths position. Then we have 5 times 1,000th. That's going to have to go in the thousandths position. Well, we have tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So we have 5,000ths. That belongs in our third decimal spot. If we want to write this as a decimal, we need to fill in zeros. So we've got 0.0405. Or we can say 405 thousandths. We can box this. It is the correct answer, and move on to our next question. Okay, we want to multiply 3.75 times 10. And when we multiply times 10, we know it's going to get bigger. Let's look what happens when we do that multiplication. We know we've got 0 as a placeholder. Then we have 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 7 is 7. And 1 times 3 is 3. We know we need to put the decimal in the right position, so we're going to move it out twice. We're going to bring it back in twice to balance that out in our product. So we move it in twice. We'll go from here in twice. It must be between the 7 and the 5. So our answer is going to be 37.5 or 0.50. Now we could have done this mentally. The way you do this mentally when you take a number and multiply it by 10, it's getting bigger, so we're going to take 3.75 and we're going to move the decimal point over one position to the right because we have 1 0 and 10. It must get bigger, so 37.5 is 10 times bigger than 3.75. We can do that with mental math, get the same answer, and then we can avoid having to show this work. You can always show this work, or you can use mental math to solve when you multiply by 10. Let's look at another example. Here we're going to multiply 3.75 times 100, and we're going to do this one with mental math. If we're multiplying, it must get bigger. So, we've got 2 zeros this time. That means we're going to have to move the decimal point over 2 times. So it's now after the 5. So our answer is 375. When we say 3 and 75/100ths times 100, our product is 375. Let's look at another one. Alright, here we're multiplying a fraction times a fraction equal to 1. So we can write our fraction bar off to the right to begin with. And 1.2 times 10, well, 10 has 1 0, so we're going to have to move the decimal point over 1 to the right. It gets bigger because we're multiplying by 10. We're going to get 12. And then 0.4 times 10, decimal has to move 1 to the right because it needs to get bigger because we're multiplying by 10. So we get 12 over 4. Well, 12 over 4, 12 divided by 4, that's the same thing as 3. So we've got our final answer. When we multiply by a fraction equal to 1, especially when it's like 10/10ths, it helps us to simplify our answer when we're working with decimals originally. Lesson practice will be on page 244 and 245. Make sure you've got your notes complete, and I'll see you during our next class.